Enough said. Miss Calloway, how you doing, dear? You all right? Good.
Ms. Galloway, as I spoke to you earlier today, number four, all those within the department, we should go to fishes committee.
Do what now?
Number four,
Okay.
that's insurance, that should go up under fish and her committee, so we can table it.
Okay, so that should go on to finance?
It should.
Okay.
It's something that the previous superintendent has put in HR,
Uh-huh.
but it shouldn't be,
Okay.
because it's a financial obligation.
Mm-hmm.
Number four, it's gonna go to finance subcommittee. Yes, so we're gonna table that, take that on.
How you doing, Sister Boo? How you doing?
I thought I saw you at the funeral.
I was there,
Okay.
and you did a wonderful job.
Well, thank you. That wasn't the reason I was bringing
You know,
that
that
up.
was my friend.
Huh?
That
Rory
Pastor-
Cavett?
oh,
I didn't know
yeah,
that.
for
I didn't know
years.
that.
We grew up on the south side together, and Bridget,
Okay,
and I knew Bridget in another life.
I got you. The one with the hat that spoke.
No, Bridget
Oh, his
is
wife.
Yeah. Advisor for Woodrow over the years.
Okay.
And we do this campaign supporter. And that's how we met him in 1997, I think it was. And Bridget, I've been knowing Bridget.
Tim is coming.
And
He
it's
was
just,
to
all these people that I lost this year is
Yeah,
just
I know.
overwhelming
Been a
for
tough
me.
year.
Overwhelming. Matter of fact, I got a picture of her at the mayor's ball years ago.
Pastor Gilbert, Attorney Tim is coming. He went to the admin building, so he said he was on his way.
It's warm in here.
Good.
Think so? Uh-huh. It's warmish, yeah. Okay.
This must be 3 tables. This is 3 tables.
Oh, is it?
This is,
I just gotta
I got all
remember
my
these
stuff
setups
smeared
when
out.
Monica leaves. Gotta remember the setups. Hey, Stephen, how are you, sir? Good, good.
yeah.
All righty.
Water out here, so I put up my pesky.
Come back to the stabilization.
Until he gets.
Okay, let's get started, I guess. I would like to call the Human Resource Committee meeting to order at 5:31, I guess, 5:33 p.m. on June the 27th, 2022. Subcommittee members, roll call. As I call your name, you say present for the record. Linda Booz,
Present.
Laura McIntyre,
Present.
myself, Alan Gilbert, present. All our members are present. We have comments from the public. At this time, we will hear comments from the public. We ask that you please raise your hand to be called upon. When called, please state your name and address before you begin speaking. And you will have 3 minutes to address the committee. Is there anyone present from the public who wishes to address the board?
I think someone just walked in, I'm not
That's
sure.
Attorney,
Oh,
Tim
okay.
Gardner, yep.
Okay.
He's gonna join us, yeah.
Okay.
A new business, the agenda. At this time, I will turn the floor over to the committee liaison, Mrs. Galloway, to present items to the committee.
Okay, so if we have, well, typically when we're at the admin, we do good things. Did you want to do that,
Absolutely.
Mr. Jones? Okay.
It's important.
You have some good things?
I do. I
Okay.
have something good to share.
Okay.
I went to some superintendent training with Middle Cities and learned a lot about some of the other districts and what they're doing as they are facing a lot of the situations we're facing with staffing and remote work and, universities that are, you have a lot of universities that are doing remote work for folks. And so they're kind of taking our people from our administration offices. And so I was glad to know that we're not the only ones. It's a lot of different districts that are dealing with some things. But the good part about the meeting was I was able to connect with other inner city schools that has had some similar situations that we can connect with and got their information. So we had a good time connecting. Dr. Rice was present. We heard a lot about what's coming up with the governor putting $1 billion into infrastructure, trying to find our way to some of those funds as well. So just learning a lot about what's going on out there, bringing some new information back to the district. So we're happy about that. So that's my good thing.
All right.
Anyone else? Anything good?
No, it's a nice
Okay.
day outside, yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so, until Tim comes in,
He's
we're,
right there.
oh, Tim's here. Hey, Attorney Gardner. So, we invited Attorney Gardner because we wanted to talk about the stabilization stipend. We recently, dispersed the last portion of that stipend. And as, I'm considered a new member of the administration. And as it was time to administer the bonus, we had to pour over the actual letter of agreement so that we could make sure we were administering them according to the eligibility listed on the agreements. And I brought copies for everybody. I wanted us to be able to, here, I'll pass some this way. So the first one, that's the same thing. So that first one that's coming around is the letter of agreement for Congress, our Congress union. This one is a letter of agreement for UTF, our teachers union. And then there was a third letter of agreement for our paraprofessional union. Okay? So,
Oh, is this?
so they're coming around, right?
Yeah,
There's
this-
three.
Oh, three.
Yep, so you should see one at the top with Congress, UTF, and paraprofessional.
Congress,
Mm-hmm,
UTF,
mm-hmm. Let's see, what do you have here, Ms. Laura?
just UTF.
Just UTF. Okay, so we've gotten stuck somewhere.
Yeah, I did.
Stop.
Here, as the
Okay, some there.
there is Congress.
Congress. I don't have Congress. Okay, you don't have Congress.
This is the code, yes.
Thank you.
Okay? So, as we're pouring over the list of all these people, we find that there are 3 letters of agreements, and they're all different in reference to eligibility, okay? Yeah. And so the reason why we paid extra attention was because we have a grievance that's going to arbitration and a grievance that hasn't quite made it to arbitration. And so we. Correct. One from paraprofessional and one from UTF. Okay? And so what we did was we refrained from paying those people again because we didn't believe that we had authorization to pay them based on the previous action of the board. So we thought it would be apropos to discuss it at our HR subcommittee meeting to see if we could discuss these letters of agreements and the administration of the stipend as it relates to the eligibility here, okay? So if we could go one by one, that would be great. I want us to just know that we have 3 letters of agreement, but we have 5 different groups of employees, right? So we have 2 additional groups of employees that are not technically represented by a union. That would be our professional technicals and our executive team board members, okay? All right? So we're just gonna we're just gonna discuss the letters of agreements that were written because that is the way that the bonus had been administered previously. So first, if you wanna look at, it's called the Service Employees International Union, that's our paraprofessional union. I highlighted and underscored some areas there. So you can see that there's only really one area of eligibility, and that says that if the employees work from March 13th through the expiration of the agreement, they are eligible, right? And so we have 2 issues with the grievance, one of which is, I believe it was interpreted that they have to work the entire time. And the union does not interpret it as that. They interpret it as if they work anytime, if they provide services throughout this time, then they are eligible. The reason why we're receiving grievances is because we have employees who are still employees that were on FMLA for a period, came back to work, continued to work services, but did not receive the stipend because the way that it was being administered was that they had to work the 2020 and the 2021 year all the way through, and that's it. So we have people that are in this union, I believe it's 5 of them, that were not paid the bonus for the January payment, and we did not pay them again for this June payment until we receive some consensus from our board. Okay? Yes,
And
ma'am.
all 5 were because of FMLA?
Yes, ma'am. We only have, and I have a list here. So 1, 2, 3, so there's 2, 3 FMLA. The other 2 were hired in 2021.
So not all 5 were FMLA?
Correct.
So
Correct.
just 3.
Just 3 were
Just
FMLA.
3. Okay.
But the other ones were here during the payments.
Okay.
But they were not paid because it had been determined if you did not work 2020, 2021 school year, you were not eligible.
And that's based on a different,
That's based on a different letter of agreement.
Letter of
What we
agreement.
believe is that if you look at the Congress letter of agreement, their agreement stipulates that eligible Congress bargaining union members have to provide service through the entire 2020, 2021 school year, okay? So this is really the only group that has that stipulation, that doesn't allow for people that came in 2021 to be paid, and you could imply that if you had any absences, you might not be eligible. So this is really the only agreement, and I believe that this was kind of used as the template for every single employee. I am assuming, I don't know, I wasn't here.
So if I can interject,
Mm-hmm.
as we learned, and I think when others that are not here and that were a part of the administration working this, being careful with that, I don't think it was very clear to our board that there's 3 different letters of agreement. We're not talking about one agreement. There's 3 different groups of, 5 different groups of people, 3 different letters of agreement.
Yeah.
You can't hold a paraprofessional to a teacher union's agreement.
Or
You-
to a Congress agreement.
Right, and you can't hold a Congress member to a teacher's agreement. That's what we did. That's what
And
happened.
then those other 2 we held.
Not in every case.
Yeah,
But that is what we have uncovered that has taken place.
Mm-hmm.
And so the paraprofessionals, and Tim, you can correct us when we go down the wrong road, but the paraprofessionals that are grieving, in our opinion, as an administration, we feel like that
based on their letter of agreement.
based on their letter of agreement, they should have been paid. That's, now, we're just going one at a time right now.
Right, we're just talking about
Right,
one
We're
group at
talking
a
about the
time.
3.
We're talking about the paraprofessionals.
Right, and this right here, this one.
Correct,
Yes.
service
Okay,
employees.
3. Okay.
Well, it's actually 5.
It's actually 5, okay.
But it's 3 that was on FMLA.
Right.
Oh, got you.
Right.
Okay.
So, let me chime in here. So we have
Yes.
SEIU, which is the paraprofessional group. And I had 2 employees, I had 2 that were on FMLA. And
That
the
group.
agreement was silent as to FMLA leave.
Okay, I'm
And
confused.
So, yeah, I've got SEIU, so the paraprofessional
Is
group.
it 2 or
I
3?
had
2 on the grievance.
2 on the grievance.
But it's 3 that were
So
on
the
it.
president decide what names are listed on the grievance.
Okay, so
When
there are
we do
3
our
total.
research, we look at all of our employees and who was and was not paid, and there were 3 that were not paid based on FMLA.
But only 2.
In SEIU.
Right. So we don't list the grievance
Okay.
and paraprofessional.
Okay.
We don't put names on the grievances, the union does that. So based on what they understand and who has come to them with the issue, that's who they list on their
You
grievance.
just
And I have a
combed,
copy
you
of it.
just combed through our
I did,
staffing to be,
yes.
for integral reasons, to make sure you,
Correct.
okay.
Correct,
All right, I just want to make sure.
yes.
So with SEIU, you have 3 employees that were on leave. In the instance of this specific situation, if you have a situation where the agreement requires you to work a specific period of time or completely, and let's say you have paid somebody or allowed somebody to receive a bonus when they have already been on leave or a similar type of leave, then arguably you can't say no to another group member that has been on, for example, in this case, FMLA leave. So employee 1 in another group is on FMLA, gets the COVID bonus payment, but if you say no to this group under the same circumstances, then arguably what you do is you open yourself up to an FMLA retaliation claim.
That what happened?
Yes, ma'am.
Apparently, so that's why I think with these group members for SEIU, there's a strong argument that if we did go to arbitration, they would have a strong case because they just, in this instance, sustained an injury during the time
Right.
period, had to go on FMLA,
And has returned to work.
returned to work, probably would have done the work had they not been on FMLA. And so for us to deny them really goes against not only federal law, but also arguably could give you challenges because I don't think that was the thrust of the agreement. It was silent to that. So I think with that specific group of people in that union, I think that arguably that would be a really strong argument for them. And I think that that's not a position we may want to take with this group. So yes.
Attorney Gardner, I understand that FMLA is federal law,
Mhm.
but it's not specified in the agreement.
No.
So if someone went on FMLA and they were gone 9 months out of that calendar year, and they came back and worked 3 months, or they were gone 11 months, or 10 months, or 364 days, and came back and worked 1 day in the calendar year, you're saying that they're eligible for this stipend, for this bonus, is that what you're saying?
They would be if we paid somebody else on FMLA, a similarly situated employee.
Even though they're in a different,
Yeah, because arguably you would say, okay, you paid this person under FMLA. Now you're going to prohibit this person who's receiving the same type of benefit? I think your argument, it would make it harder for you
so in
to.
arbitration, you feel we would lose?
That would be evidence that they would try to submit that would put us in a challenging situation. That's what I would suspect.
So the individuals on the top of here, they're the grievance,
One of them
and
is.
one of them?
One of them, actually, she's on their board, but the other two are not. Those are people that actually signed the agreement
Okay.
that are part of the union leadership.
Okay, the leadership.
But not the grievance. The grievance is a different form.
Okay,
Mhm.
so they just signing to?
They sign for the agreement.
Agreement,
Like the
okay,
board, the
gotcha.
board signs, the superintendent at the time signs, and then the union signs.
So to Attorney Gardner, how can we even have an LOA that kind of goes against the spirit of FMLA? Or, I mean, I don't understand how we
Oh.
are even in this position.
Let me-
Because it would just seem to me that if you're on it doesn't matter, FMLA, it's not like you're not working, it's that, we all know what it is, like, that it wouldn't disqualify you from getting anything
Right? No
that you
benefits of any
should
sort. Yep.
have
You're still an
because
employee.
you're, in FMLA. So how, I don't understand how we ended up in this situation where we've got a document that is putting us at risk.
It was silent on that issue, so it didn't address that issue. And I think what administration decided to do is in this situation be conservative and say, okay, we're going to hold off on a payment here because if we do issue the payment, it's hard to get that money back. So I think they wanted to have discussion and say, hey, here are the categories of employees we're dealing with here before we issue a payment that you just can't get back.
Oh,
the
no, your
previous-
administration, it was
Yeah.
the previous administration,
Oh,
right? Okay.
Correct,
This time we did.
but we wanted
We
to,
reserved as well this time.
well, we have more of a hand in it now. I'll say that. To be able to look at the differences between the LOA, but here's the reason why we didn't pay them. We didn't pay them
This time.
because, we know that the board I didn't feel like the board understood it like this.
Sure, there's questions and there's a grievance and.
Right,
But
and you
that
don't
makes-
just
that
go ahead
makes
and pay people.
Right.
I think we bring it to
And there
this
were
table.
several meetings where you
before.
all had decided, we're not going to do, in a different group, right?
Right.
So we just didn't want to murky the waters. We just didn't.
Well, for me, it's already murky.
I understand.
I heard you say LOA, so is that leave of absence?
That's
No,
just
this is the
agreement.
That's just
document,
the
letter of
agreement?
agreement.
That's the agreement, okay?
Yes, sir.
So, the FMLA is the key to this. Is that really what you're saying?
For the one we're talking about
No.
right now, this particular LOA
Yeah.
for our paraprofessionals union, this is, yes.
So going forward, if you come to an agreement, you cannot, the district, the board cannot in any way violate or try to squeeze anything that has to do with the FMLA. You see what I'm saying? In other words, what I'm saying is that, like I said, if that individual was on that FMLA for 363 days or whatever the calendar year, 280, whatever the school calendar year is. And 7/8 of that time, they were not on the job. And I understand about what Sister Laura said about people can be off for whatever reasons, because the law gives them that ability to protect their job. Is that correct?
It does, but
Yeah.
again, like we were talking about 365 days, really FMLA, you get 12
That's it. You don't
12
get
weeks,
that
you don't
many.
get any addition. So that time period, along with maybe an additional health leave or something else like that,
Yeah.
you can be out for an extended time, but still leave where you can't do your job because you have a health condition.
Okay,
So you would normally perform your position,
okay,
but if we have already paid a similarly situated person,
we have.
if
Yes,
we have
sir.
done that, then you put yourself in a really tough position to say no to these
To
two
these other
people.
people.
Absolutely, because then that's evidence that you've already done it this time.
Discriminating,
Now you're basically arguably retaliating or arguably treating that person differently because they were on FMLA
And you
or some
didn't
other
do
leave.
anything wrong as a board by paying the person that was on FMLA.
Correct.
That was a different group.
Yeah,
So you didn't do anything wrong, but when you look at each LOA, each letter of agreement, you have to abide by what we put in writing for that group. What we did, and I'm saying we because I was in the room here when the board was having the conversation, was what we did is we kind of jumbled everybody into one group when we were talking because it wasn't explained on that side of the table as it should have been, just being honest about it. And so if it was, then I think that this would have looked different a while back. So we want to right the ship is all we're trying to do is make sure that you as a board understand these 3 letters of agreement. And for parapros, this is the one we're on, parapros, we tell the true story of what this could possibly be. And so we wanted Mr. Gardner to be here to help us to ensure that we're doing the right thing by our staff.
so the parapros is under the
Yes,
SEIU?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
okay.
So that's where we are with that group, okay? If we move to the UTF, this letter of agreement is quite specific. And in this case, there are 3 different areas of eligibility, okay? So in this letter of agreement, the first payment, the employees are eligible if they work the entire 2020-2021 school year, okay? But then the second payment, it says you are eligible if you work from this date to this date, if you provide services, okay? Now where we get in, and then the third payment, there's this last semester we just finished just now, okay? Now where we get into the issue with the grievance that's moving to arbitration is this B area, the second area, right? So the employee that they have named on their grievance, along with others, one of them was on leave in the 2020-2021. So she didn't get that first payment. And what they were saying was, even though the agreement is silent to that, we're not necessarily grieving that. If you want to say she didn't provide service the entire year, okay. But she should definitely be eligible for the second and the third payment because she returned to work. But to my understanding, if you weren't on that first list that was paid out and approved by the board, the administration at that time were not approved, did not feel approved or comfortable to pay people that were not on that first list to pay for 2020 and 2021. So that second payment that went out in January, instead of those employees following this eligibility, if you weren't on that first list, you didn't get paid, right? Because that was the list that was approved by the board. That was the list that everybody was sure. There were some other pieces that was sprinkled in there that had nothing to do particularly with these UTF people, okay? So because she wasn't on that first list, because she was on leave, even though she came back to work, and she came back to work from August to December, and then even though she didn't get the payment in January, she worked January to June, right, as a teacher. And so they're grieving it because they're saying she's eligible according to our agreement. We don't understand. And so there was some specific conversation about that agreement, I believe, here with the board. And there was some advisement, and she was not paid, her particularly. Now, they also have other people on their grievance. That's a separate issue. That issue are employees that worked that period, but they worked 8-3. The agreement says 8-1, right? Problem is, there's no classes 8-1. So they started 8-3 because that's when school started. And so, but because they weren't on that first list, because there were questions about whether or not this was a recruitment bonus, and because they didn't have that first date, they didn't receive the payment. So they are moving to arbitration in the absence of payment of these people. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 of those people.
Okay.
And those people all would be due 2 payments at this point, because we did not pay them the June payment, as we said before, because we wanted to do this process. We needed to come before the board. We were thankful that there was an HR subcommittee, that we could have some open discussion about this, to see if we could move forward with payment or not. But we did not move, even with our understanding of it, we didn't move forward with payment this past paycheck because we didn't want to usurp the previous decision that had been made by the board.
So the 10 were hired after August 1st,
No,
right?
ma'am. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You only got 9 that were hired after August 1st.
Okay.
You've got the 1 that has been an employee since 1996.
Okay.
Yeah,
Got it.
so with respect to that one employee that we're talking about that was
From the
on.
leave
That
for
was on
2020.
leave, was on FMLA, and so she wasn't included on that first payment. The second payment, she came back August 3rd. The date on the agreement says August 1st, but really the intent of the parties was that you start back on the first day of school that you can provide service. But both parties had August 1st as opposed to it being August 3rd. So, under the strict interpretation of the agreement, the district decided we're not going to pay the August 1st date. The August 1st date, because it's August 1st, it's not supposed to be, it's supposed to be August 3rd. So basically, we didn't pay it because of that date. But in reality, I think the intent of the parties was, you're gonna pay, you pay if you provide service at the start of the school year. So, that along with the FMLA piece of this for the one employee, I would contend, again, this is another situation where maybe it's a little arguable, but I think both parties were trying to look at the fact that had she not been on FMLA, like we talked about with the other employee, she would have provided the service. He's a long-term employee. We have already done this again for another situation, like I mentioned before, to, again, deny her, again, there's another argument the union will raise in arbitration for her.
So, Attorney Gardner, with permission, why on earth did we enter into an LOA, both parties, with the August 1st date instead of the August 3rd? Wasn't there some kind of oversight
Yes, there was.
that would say, wait a minute, and so what are the circumstances surrounding that date, and why are we even in this predicament?
Well, I'll speak, I know the union and also the district, and I was part of that group. We all saw the August 1st date. We saw it a number of times. And August 3rd was supposed to be the date, but it was not on the agreement. It should have been August 3rd, because that's the first day of school. Everybody on the team looked at it, but again, it was supposed to be August 3rd. We can take.
But can I,
Yep.
my question was why? And why was it left? Is it a mistake, and then everybody signed it and it as a mistake? I mean, we're talking about, you got a legal firm, probably on the other side too, right?
No, it was the union on the other side, and their team looked at it as well, and they had time to look at it.
So why did everybody sign off on it?
I think we thought that that was the day that started school. I mean, I think that was the case, but nobody, yet, okay.
I wasn't here, right? But what I would assume is that they didn't think that the date would be held so strictly.
I don't want, I'm sorry,
I
I'm sorry to
understand.
interrupt. I don't want
I-
assumptions, I want to know what happened.
I also want
That's-
to just raise that that school actually was postponed and there was like virtual classes as well, right? So the beginning, when the school year started, there was also some delay. So I think that some of the dates, I don't know when
That's
this was
so, I
done.
mean, with all due respect, I don't want like assumptions and sort of guessing. What I'm asking for in this
So August
subcommittee
1st.
meeting is the explanation.
So August 1st was a Sunday.
Correct.
So I can't say, I don't know that I was present when we determined the date. It might have been my predecessor. August 1st of 2021.
Yes, August 1st of 2021 was
So
put
that's a
on the
Sunday,
agreement.
so it seems as though, if I can think back, it seems as though we just said August 1st.
I think we were saying
Sounded like we
August.
just said August 1st,
Right.
because we knew scholars were coming back. I guess I'm trying to support the idea of why we would say August 1st, is because this is when kids are coming back.
Correct.
Right.
That was the thought, but it was actually the first day, I imagine, was
That's all I
August
can
3rd.
think, Laura, is that it's a thought of August 1st, starting the new school year, but you actually started the new school year. Principals were back. Teachers didn't come back until that Monday, and scholars started, I think, that Tuesday.
I mean, I get that. What I'm asking is what on earth, are there any meeting minutes? Is there any accountability? Is there any documentation? Like, what is going on and why is this so slipshod when it's something, we're talking about $22,000 plus bonus for these individuals. It's something so important. We're talking about ESSER funds where you can be disqualified at the stroke of a pen for missing some kind of a regulation. And somebody here, not just somebody, several somebodies dropped the ball on this date. I mean, what does the union have to say? They signed it too. What does Bruce have to say?
Bruce also said that, yes, we both teams got the August 1st date wrong. He admits to that too. I mean, everybody on this forum signed this agreement. I mean, so it happened. I think the intent was August 3rd. I'm not gonna run from that and say that it didn't happen, because it did. It was supposed to be August 3rd from what administration.
So, Attorney Gardner, you signed it as well?
Oh, yes, I did. I'm not gonna run from that.
So, I mean, I'm just trying to wrap my head around this egregious error. Like, it is. I mean, this is what you guys are paid to do. You're the professionals. This is your responsibility. Why, I'm just, I don't know, kind of at a loss for words. Something like this, I mean, we're now dealing with arbitration, we're dealing with grievance, we're dealing with FMLA issues, because how many people were at this meeting and how many people signed this agreement? I mean, this isn't just one person going, oops. It's not just a former administrator, promising the moon in a couple emails, which is another issue that we had. But this is a whole group of people. So I want an explanation.
Well, I mean.
Not speculation or assumptions.
Right.
I want an explanation.
Right. Well, all I can say is that essentially that date was not picked up by the team at the time, and the union also didn't pick it up. I think the intent, I'm pretty sure that what the intent was to be the first day of school. And so that's where things stood with respect to that. I think they all thought it was gonna be the first day of school, August 3rd, but most people, I think that the calendar either wasn't checked But I
First day of school is August 4th.
August 4th, but I think August 3rd was the first day students come back, or maybe teachers come back.
Teachers return on August 3rd.
And I think at some point they brought back agreements to correct the date when they realized that it was going to be held to the date. So if August 1st is the date, but school doesn't start until August 3rd, I think the spirit of the bonus was to say, if you work the time, then you are eligible for the bonus.
I understand that. I'm still trying to get at the bottom of this dropping the ball. I get all this. I understand the whole spirit and everything. So we're gonna can we just go to the union? Oh, well, oops. You made a mistake, now you're gonna have to deal with it? Sorry, Bruce.
I think that's what they did, that's what you all did, and that's why it's going to arbitration now.
Well, if we're doing it, if the agreement is from August 1st, then that means we're in front of when teachers actually come back.
Correct.
Which should
Should
be,
include them.
it should include them.
And they still were employed during that time.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, it's not
So
like
from the
they-
1st to the 3rd is, it's still,
It
they're
wasn't
still,
available to serve.
That's
they're
the only
still
way
a
I
part.
can see it.
But if an arbitrator looks at that or looks at just the whole situation, they'll say, what was the intent of the parties? I think they'll say the intent of the parties was that they're going to start the 1st of August and then they provide service all the way until that January date, January 14th date, and you set that date up, of course, because of the set semester system and payroll. So I think that was the intent of the parties, was that they wanted to start at the beginning of August. They wanted it to go to January 14th, and that would be the second installment. These dates were all kind of correlated to our pay schedule. So those were the dates we received at the time, but I do think that with respect to all of that, that's what exactly happened.
So we have more. So,
Yes.
I know.
Ms. Gallo,
Yes, sir.
I guess if we're going to deal with contracts and agreements and all of this, I mean, it seems to me that the 1st of August was on a Sunday. No teacher school on Sunday. They haven't done it all my entire life that I've ever went to school. They haven't taught on Sunday. Not professional academic teachers, except maybe professors, they might do it. So I'm just saying that August 1st, August 3rd, and one's a Sunday, and one's a what?
Tuesday.
A Tuesday?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'm just saying, to me, Attorney Gardner, and man, you know I like you, and you're a smart fellow. But my problem is, why is it that these type of things are not important? Seems like it's not. And just from what you're saying, and I know Ms. Galloway, she wasn't here. But you were here, and Superintendent Jones was here, and Smurphy was here, and others was here. Is that right?
We were here.
You were, don't say no more.
We
now.
were here.
Yeah, you were here. And all I'm saying is that these type of things in the future, we just gotta make sure that we are where we're supposed to be, on the date we're supposed to be, and from here to there. So, I'm not saying they necessarily shouldn't get it. They probably should. I don't know. I don't like to fool with people's money. I just don't like to do that. But if you got an agreement and it's ratified, and then you're looking at what you've done in another agreement, and then you're saying the arbitrator's gonna look at that, I mean, well then why don't you just have one agreement then? I don't get it. Why would you have 2 or 3 agreements if the agreements, if they take it to the next step, or we feel the board doesn't, no, you're not gonna get it. Let's just say that's what.
Because,
Then, go
because
ahead.
each union has a right to negotiate the way they want to negotiate. Each union can negotiate their terms with the district. So we have to allow them that space to make those negotiations. And this was around the time, first of all, let me say this. This is something unprecedented and new, to give 22.5 and figure out a way to give 22.5. And I will speak to that from those that were at that table and are no longer here. The whole thought behind this was trying to keep our staff, to show our staff that we appreciate them, and not have folks walking out the door because of COVID. And so I believe that when the fact that we have 3, because I asked the same question, why do we have 3? We were talking about that. And if we ever did this again, I think there's a better way to do it, but it'll be the second time if we ever did it again, right? So you learn from your first mistakes. But there was 3 different unions here thinking about how they wanted to receive this COVID bonus. So I'm just speaking to that part of it.
Right, you answered my question.
So that's why I would say this is why we have 3 LOAs. If the LOAs were looking just the same for the most part, it would still be 3 LOAs.
I see.
Speaking to what the superintendent is just mentioning, this is not, this amount of funds being dispersed to employees is totally unprecedented. It's not happening anywhere. Didn't happen last year anywhere else in the state. So obviously, it was a huge benefit and assisted staff members, and I think helped them to stay with the district during this time period, and was a creative way to do it. But obviously, when you do something like that, it's a little creative and trying to help employees. Sometimes it's not as smooth to, when you do something like that, it's just one of a kind. So I think now we have probably a couple more groups. One more group that, with respect to Congress, and then following those administrators that are not in Congress. That is something that's totally different than what we've talked about. So you got UTF and SEIU, and then you got Congress. We don't have agreements with Congress, so there's nothing there. But then you have these 2 other groups that are professionals and that are technical professionals. And they are not covered by these 3 agreements.
Correct.
And they have, in some cases, employment contracts. So if you hire somebody in an employment contract, usually the terms of their contract govern what they're paid when you hire them through board action. The district had a practice, from my understanding, of following the Congress agreement when they were professionals. So I don't know that there was a written document or anything like that that establishes that.
There is not.
And so that was requested, and they couldn't find anything that apparently confirmed that you could do this sort of thing with every employee that's not covered in these 3 agreements. And so the only way that we've seen through the state that you're able to do that is that you have to do it through actual board action, where the board would approve these employees, or have something what's called a Me Too clause. Meaning a Me Too clause would be in an employment contract, if employment group A gets such and such money, then I get such and such money. In this instance, none of that was in place. What we had really was us following this established past practice. So I think maybe the superintendent may be able to talk about that past practice.
The board has been discussing. The past practice is the reason why a lot of things that have happened in this district has happened. So when Ms. Galloway brought this back to me and we began discussing, and past practice came up, I immediately thought about some of the board members that said, past practice is the reason why we're here in this problem today. So we wanted to bring this because this is a past practice. Everybody follows Congress. Well, why would my secretaries, not secretaries, my assistants have to follow the Congress and they're not in Congress? Why would the executives or directors follow us, well, executives follow Congress and they're not in Congress?
So we couldn't grieve, or they couldn't grieve, right? And so, one of the examples is our controller who's filling in right now as our executive director of finance. She's filling in. She was hired in 2021, in February. Let me get it right. Because I know we don't want to be messing with no dates. Yes, she was hired in February of 2021. So when the first payment was made in August for the whole 2021 year, she didn't get it. When the payment was made this January for August to December, or January 13th, she didn't get it. And then this payment, she did not get. So she is excluded from Congress, but follows Congress, and so on and so forth.
Okay, so now that I've beaten another dead horse, of just kind of like what I do around here, I just wanted an explanation. I wanted to get things cleared up. I want to make sure that we don't do this moving forward, that that we're transparent above board. But that being said, I think, and this is my opinion as one board member, as one person, and we're in a subcommittee meeting where we're having a discussion, I would like to see everybody get paid, everybody get their bonuses, but I want to make sure, and so I would like to do whatever we can, and that would be my opinion and my recommendation moving forward to the board, that, so we don't have arbitration, so that we don't have grievances. So I guess I would rest it on Tim's shoulder, Attorney Gardner's shoulders, like, how can we make this happen so that it's all legal, so that we don't get into any trouble, so that we don't violate ESSER, so we don't open up another can of worms for another category of people to come forward and make claims that without merit, but what can we do to make our district whole, to do the right thing? Like, like I said, I'm speaking for myself. I think these people should be paid, and immediately.
Right, I
So,
agree.
yeah.
So what Tim had suggested, because we wanted to walk this whole process out. So we got subcommittee, we got Kyle, we got, right? And so what was difficult about that for us was because the payment went out, right? June
Right.
17th, and we couldn't change that.
Right,
So we
right.
did the best we could do. But what Tim consulted us to do was get our information together, go before your board, and then the board can do a resolution to say, these are the people, or we're going to pay these people. However, it needs to be written up in order to do that through board action, so that we can make sure as an administration, we are following the direction of the board, but also we are restoring the intent of the stipend to the employees, especially those that continue to work. We've had some people leave that either received it or didn't, but there are some people that are still here, that are still continue to work, even though they didn't get any of the bonuses, and watched all of them go out. And in Ms. Wood's case, administered them, you know what I mean, cut the check. So, to me and to us, it was very important to take the risk to come before you again about a very sensitive topic. If for nothing else, those employees who has decided to stick in there, even though, they didn't receive the payment. So, Attorney Gardner.
Yeah, in response to the question about how we can do this and kind of provide some protection, we were scheduled to meet with the union, that's UTF, tomorrow, because the idea is we want to identify all, that is all, employees that may be or could be or will be having claims that they should be getting this part of this $7,500. So we don't keep coming back to you and saying, well, this employee came back or this employee came back. We'd rather just have all the employees, we have a list, but we want to double check with them to say that there's nobody else out there that you're saying, and I know he's probably listening right now, but there's nobody else out there saying that, he probably listened to the whole thing, but yeah, he is who I think you know what I'm talking about.
Everybody.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
everybody's supposed to get paid, we just want you to come forward now, so we can resolve this once and for all in July, as we don't have this stretch out any further. That's what we're planning on doing tomorrow, and hopefully, my thought is that we can get an identification on every employee, and then bring that back to the superintendent after we have our discussion, so if there's anybody else that is added to the list, due to some oversight or what have you, we will be able to identify them at that time. But this is just for UTF. SEIU, we have already reached out to them. We asked to have a short Zoom call with them. They're on vacation at this time. They are supposed to be out until the 7th of July. There's a deadline, from my understanding, that the board has for documents to be submitted to the board, which is July 6th, from my recollection, July 7th.
Yeah.
So I have tried to get a meeting with them June 27th through this week, or I said any other time that we can have a quick Zoom call to identify all of the employees that, because I think when Ms. Galloway was talking just now, she indicated, I thought it was just 2, but then she said, well, there's actually 3. Well, I just want to make sure with that group, we say we've identified everybody in your group before we bring them forward to the board. So my point is, with that group, it might be August, because we haven't been able to meet with them in the time frames that you set up to have documentation submitted.
So
They have an open grievance, so we're trying to work it out.
I think I think if we get to the president, I think she would want to know that this is resolved. So I do know that they don't return until August, but I do believe if we reached out to the president and we can resolve this, we might be able to get it resolved in July.
And is the deadline one that's like just imposed by the board, or is it, I mean, is it something we could
Yeah, we're in
extend?
transition with our assistant, and
Yeah.
so Mo is training Pam, and I think they moved just the date up one day, but typically it's the Thursday before the following Wednesday that we have to get information to her so that she can provide it to the board. Does that make
Okay,
sense? So
right,
it's-
right, right. For
yeah.
the board meeting,
Yes,
okay, I
so
see.
the cow is the 13th.
It's not just an administrative deadline like,
No,
oh,
no,
okay,
no, no, no.
okay, I
That's
thought
the
what I was
deadline
thinking.
for the board meeting, for us to get our documents, what's going in the packet.
But we can actually try to reach out to SCIU.
Yes, yes, I did. I sent an
Okay.
email out and tried to reach them. But again, they're on vacation right now. He made it clear that he was going to be gone for, both said they were going to be gone for the next 2 weeks. But I did say, hey, we want to do a quick Zoom to identify all the employees. We would be willing to meet with you. You can call us or whatever, so we can get this resolved before your July 7th date. But
I'll
we
make
haven't
one
heard
more
back.
effort.
I will make one more effort
Yeah.
and see if I can reach out to them. They know what the deadline is, but again, they're on vacation. I don't know where they are at this point, but those 3 employees are probably, with respect to the matter, they're the 3 employees that are on leave that we talked about first. And really, I think that's probably the most
easiest cut dry one.
easy one, and they have also agreed to hold the grievance in abeyance.
Yeah.
Meaning that they are not pursuing, they're not advancing it to arbitration because we do have a good relationship with them. And they understand we're working to try to resolve this. So I don't know that I'd like to get this resolved as soon as possible, but again, I don't know that there is the pressure of us approaching arbitration date with them. They're holding it in abeyance.
So is Bruce over the SEIU?
Nope, that's UTF, that's the
Okay.
teachers.
Yeah.
I was just wondering.
And he's not, he's the vice, I think.
He's the UNISERV director. So Bruce is the UNISERV director, and Karen Christian is the president of UTF. Now with SEIU, Dominic Barbado is actually their representative, and Carmela Johnson is their president. And so we reached out to both of them, and we're hoping to get a response from them. So I think we've kind of talked about the two unions, but I think we kind of short-circuited that discussion on the administrators, because that's a different scenario,
Well,
so.
board member Laura spoke to it and stated she, whoever's supposed to get paid, should be getting paid.
Yeah.
So,
And so basically what happened is you got two other groups that they're not in anything.
But there's
And-
only three,
And you said there's only two ways to really handle that. Board needs to make a decision or a Me Too clause.
Me too. And
Right.
so, can we?
well, yes, the Me Too clause would have to go into an agreement. So some of these employees don't have, from my understanding, written employment agreements. So, yeah, so really with them, I think your most effective way to do it is through board action at a board meeting, so it's reflected in the board meeting minutes that you actually took this action with respect to these employees. You don't have to name them, but you have to identify them maybe with an identification number or something like that, so they can be identified in the record.
So could we talk this, bring it before the board? I mean, I don't know what the process or the procedure would be, but I certainly would like maybe to have a draft of something, like vetted by you, that we could then bring to the whole board to make, for board action, but at least it wouldn't be just someone,
Not just
nominating
talking.
something out of the chair, just off the ground, but something that's crafted,
and we could put in the board packet possibly.
yeah, and then we can take explicit action.
Yes,
For the.
that would be the
all-
hope.
To cover all the groups, and we could recommend as a subcommittee to move it forward to do that.
That's good.
How many employees will be in the Me Too clause?
1, 2, so you actually have one, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 11.
11?
Mhm.
Okay.
So there's a total of 26 out of this whole group. Some of which, most of these in this last group, you've only got a few that, most of,
Okay. And what about hire dates? You have their hire dates?
Yes, I do. So
Without names?
many of them one of them is 2020. Many of them 2021.
Yep. So, yes, most of them are 2021 from what we can
Yes.
tell.
Yep.
So I think certainly that's something we can do, and the idea is to try to get this to allow the board to have, I guess, there's going to be another discussion potentially with another set of board members. But the idea is that everybody's just on the same page as to what's happening, has clear information, and then can make a decision with regard to these employees. So,
So board members, I think what would help us is if, when we get to the table with the other board members, if you could explain that, what it would help us to kind of move it a little faster. Not that I'm trying to,
Otherwise, we
Stop
have to
them
do
from having-
all this work again.
Right.
It's clear to me.
Yeah.
It's clear.
Yeah, and I just think it's important that once we, as Sister Boo said, once your mind is clear, you got to act.
Right.
I mean, there's nothing else to do. We can just, I think Sister Laura talking about, right, just beating that horse to death. Sometimes you gotta beat it for a while before you realize it's dead anyway. Because not only do you feel better, but you want others to realize that in order to get past this, there's some things that's got to change. And so it's clear with the 3 agreements and why the Me Too clause. I mean, I think that was only the second or third time I ever heard that clause. It always came from Attorney Gardner. So now it's kind of clear to me exactly, what that means and how that works from a legal standpoint.
And then one thing, and I don't, Ms. Galloway, when you said take a risk, like bringing this forward before the board, I don't know, I'm even starting to feel some sort of way.
Oh, no, don't, please don't.
Because it breaks my heart.
Please,
Let me just explain. Not that
Yeah.
I'm taking offense, I'm just, what I'm telling you is that, I apologize if you've been put in a position where you feel like threatened or like,
it is.
I hear that, is what I'm saying. Like I said,
Thank you
I'm
for,
kind of,
thank you for that, Lord.
and I don't,
It is.
I
It
don't
feels like
ever
it.
want either one of you or anybody to feel like if business has to get done, you know, you're risking something, personal, professional, or anything, because that's never been my intent, and God, I'm just a mess right now.
It's okay, I
You know what I
appreciate
mean?
that, because it is, and as an executive team, we hoggled over, were we gonna do this? And at some point, we brought it before Tim, and it was like, you know, and not to speak to any particular board person's responses, but because of the history of this particular discussion and issue, we understood that it had been discussed multiple times, and so, you know, it's, yeah.
With no action.
Well, there was action.
It was
Okay,
action,
okay.
yeah,
There
it
was
was action.
action, it just wasn't in favor of what we're talking about now.
Right,
But we
yeah.
believe that if we took the time to show it and express the interpretation of it, that we could get on one page. And so we
And that's always
decided to
been
do
my
that.
intent,
Yeah.
and it's never been, you know, to make things difficult or hard. I've just been, you know, trying to get the work done and stuff. And so, like I said, I apologize for any part in it that I may have played in, you know, causing some kind of fear or worry. You know, I'm just trying to do the right thing, and I really appreciate you even saying, you took a risk by saying take a risk. You know what I mean? And,
But we were here, right? And I'm
Yeah.
thankful for this forum, because in the formal board meetings, we don't get to speak. We don't get to respond unless we're asked a question. And so, I appreciate
But
this,
Miss-
I really do.
If I can, Ms. Galloway,
Yes, sir.
going forward, as long as I'm here as a board member and fiduciary, that's the kind of thing that has to change. Because if we're going to be, get that, whatever that is out there, we got to get it out of the way, and it takes all of us. It just can't be on the administration. It's got to be on us as board members, because, like I said, I don't like to fool with people's pay. Because people see you at the gas station or at the bank, and they say, oh, you're on the school board, you're the one that kept me from so-and-so and so-and-so. So, I understand it a little better, because, and I've always thought this since I've been in this negotiation thing about all of these different agreements. I just wondered about them, but I guess that's the way it has to be, and that's fine too, but, I'm wrapping my arms around it, but whenever you, as you and I have talked, is that we were gonna work toward that goal to change the culture of what happened yesterday. We can't go back to yesterday, but we gotta go from here and go forward. That's what we gotta do. And the board can't do it without you, and you can't do it without the board.
That's right.
And if we get off track, then Attorney Gardner, he won't miss that date no more.
Yes.
Well, we appreciate
We
all
won't
of
miss
you.
that.
And we won't
We
miss
won't
that.
miss that day.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're going to, if, I'll get with Tim, we'll make sure something's in the packet for you all to, for the subcommittee to bring
Yeah.
forward.
It's a large,
Yep.
something that we can,
And we'll move forward with those items there. So our next item is the GSRP duty-free lunch grievance. So, that is a previous grievance that has come before the district multiple times, and ultimately it's due to low staffing. So GSRP is our pre-K group, and it is required that there are 2 teachers at all times with those students. And so what that means is that there's not an opportunity for them to have a duty-free lunch. So when I came on board, it was brought up again, and Bruce has been, I'll say gracious, in trying to create an informal abeyance before it goes to an official grievance again. It's been paid out before. What we looked at was doing an agreement that says until we're able to get the staff up, the GSRP employees, which is only a total right now of about 5 or 6, that are impacted, that they would be paid, once a semester to cover the lack of duty-free lunch. So there's an agreement that's been drawn up between Attorney Gardner and Bruce. They're kind of going back and forth with that agreement right now, but essentially what has been agreed upon with the administration and the union is to say it's basically a $15 payment. So it would be $1,800 for the year for these people until we're able to fill those positions. So that will be something that we would be looking to bring before the board for approval, to settle that so that it doesn't go in grievance, because it is something that we are entitled to give them. And until we can bring that staffing in, we would be, you know, we have to pay them that money, and it would be more efficient for us to do it on a differential basis, so to pay them once a semester when we pay other people for being the, you know, the senior class overseer, whatever, right? It's easier for us to do that rather than going person by person saying, okay, you gotta get this, or waiting for them to create an issue to bring it forward. So, yes, ma'am.
So you and Attorney Gardner are gonna take care of this, it's gonna be brought before the board,
That's correct.
and we're gonna vote on it, and that'll be it, and
Yep.
we will, okay, so we're just,
And the agreement stipulates that we're only responsible for this until the staffing. So once another person is filled in there, then that teacher, whoever they are, they're not eligible for that differential or that supplemental money, because they can take a lunch without being with the kids, right? So we're already in works, but we can't finish it without board approval, and we definitely can't pay it without that either. Yeah.
So,
All right.
so Ms. Galloway, you just need one more employee to make that difference, where they would have a lunchtime?
No, sir, you
How many
need
employees?
an additional employee in each classroom.
Oh, the classroom.
Right, so there's multiple classrooms, and in every classroom, there has to be two for
So-
those, because they're too small.
So you need, one teacher, okay, you got two in every GSRP classroom. Third person comes and relieves one of the teachers for lunch. And then after that teacher comes back, that person will stay and relieve the other teacher for lunch. Currently, we don't have that other
We
person.
don't have the third, because people aren't interested in working that part-time.
Couple hours.
Yeah. And coming into the
They're not
classroom
interested in that.
with the code.
And they get an extra fee for doing that. Is that extra, or is that included in there?
The third person would be an additional hire, right?
Okay.
Because right now, everybody's stretched. So we've got teachers that aren't even taking differentials because they got multiples. We don't have enough teachers, we don't have enough subs. So finding that third person to come into the classroom to work an hour or two, and then, you know, it's been impossible. And it's been an issue for years, from what I understand. This isn't a new, it's not a new thing.
We just want to make sure we bring it to the table and do something about it.
Yeah. Okay.
We're good there?
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
So the last thing is personnel recommendations. Yep.
so that's your release, is
Yes,
that
I-
it?
Yeah,
Thank you
yes,
so much,
yes. Hey,
Tim.
hey, Tim, cut the clock off right now.
Yes, I am
Yeah.
off right now.
All right.
Thank you, Tim. We appreciate it.
We'll work on it with UTM tomorrow.
Yes.
Thanks,
Thank you
sir.
so much.
All right, see you, man.
Safe drive, Tim. Thank you.
Have a good
So
day.
as we spoke earlier, number 4, catastrophic coverage insurance with renewal of contract, that should be in the finance subcommittee. So we're going to table that.
Right?
Yes.
Till July 5th, okay.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
So that should be tabled, and then we're gonna go ahead and go to personnel recommendations. So, I've been in conversation, with board president and, also the team as it pertains to the work that goes into preparing board information, board meetings, the work that's being done around, subcommittees and just all the work that happens with our board. And what we have all found is that our current executive assistant has done the work of, I would say, 2 people for years, and it's been a problem. It's been a problem on many levels. It's been a problem leading up to even where, her departure. Because that's the work of two people. In this district before, this was the work of two people. And so, what we are requesting and what's gonna come to the board table is that, we have a secretary that's going to be working up under the superintendent, that's going to be assigned to our board to handle all things board. And then we would have a secretary that's going to be working with the superintendent to run the district day-to-day, and also working with our operations department. We're gonna forego, so both of these are gonna be hand in hand, A and B. We're gonna forego hiring an assistant for the business operations office, because we have come to a place where, with the director of operations, our current interim person, I was able to talk to a few of you about this, I think board president, okay. Very valuable person to our district. So we have decided, we worked with the business office to forego hiring an administrative assistant for business office and operations. That administrative assistant work will be with the secretary that's hired to help the superintendent with the day-to-day work of the district, okay? That is separate from the board secretary. All right, so we're talking, that's another assistant that will help two departments. But then we bring on a director of operations who we've already interviewed, that has the skill set as it pertains to administration, construction management, understands how to work with all of those people, understands how to do the RFPs, because that technically should not be a job for Ms. Tish. But she's taking on those duties because the person we have in our interim spot has a learning curve, okay? And right now in our district, we have to move a lot of money. We have to move on a lot of infrastructure. And so the administration would like from the board to allow us to make our current interim person our maintenance manager, because we need that skill set. And we want to bring in a new director of operations who we've interviewed several people. We took the proper channels, and we believe that we found a person that can really handle the administrative parts of that work and really get us moving a lot faster with the big work. However, we believe in the work that our current interim has done, and we don't want to leave him out and not have him. I wanted to bring it to the board first before we made any moves and had this discussion. But we believe that what we can offer, talk to Ms. Tish, the board will not be paying any more money out than they're already paying for us to make this move with the director of operations. That has to do with benefits as well, how people take benefits.
What was the interim doing before he became interim?
Oh, he was working for a third party,
Okay, third party.
yes.
And so how is it gonna not cost us more if we're gonna have a maintenance manager and a director of operations?
We're foregoing the administrative assistant.
Okay, but we are having the administrative assistant duties of director of operations go under
Superintendent
the
office.
superintendent office?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. And then we have two assistants, one for the board and one for the superintendent / director of
Correct.
operations? Okay.
Correct.
And the other question is, how does the current interim director of operations feel about this?
So-
What's his,
The proper channel is to come to you first. That was the proper channel to take. This person will receive a phone call from me and a conversation to set up a meeting, but this person is currently out of town. So.
will he be compensated at least as much as he's receiving now with with the benefits?
It's gonna be close, it's gonna be very close. So the difference is going to be, his interim pay is, I can't talk pay, right?
But we could say it is,
His
we
pay
could
will
say
be
it's,
10,000 less.
Okay.
It will be 10,000 less.
To be a maintenance manager would be
Yes.
10,000 less.
Again, his duties is not going to be what the Director of Operations duty currently is. Now, I mean, if the board wants to, if the board wants to talk about looking at that differently and saying, here's where we are. I wanna put it out there on the floor. The duties are different. There's a high level of duties. This person would not have to report information to the board. This person would not have to work with the RFPs and administrative work. But the person that will be, the maintenance person we're reporting to will have to do all of those extra assignments and come to board meetings. And so there is a distinction of how much work is given to the director rather than the manager.
The manager.
And so what I didn't want to do was lose out on, I didn't want to not provide this space for our current interim because he's worked and he's done well. However, I also have to think about the state of the district and the work that we have ahead of us and currently the work in the business office. And we have to have someone with the skill set to be able to work with our third parties and the RFPs, that knows about construction managers, that's worked with the construction manager and architects before and can understand and be utilizing that work. So the difference is going to be about a $10,000 difference.
So you've already found a director of operations that you've offered
No.
a position to?
We haven't offered
But
anything.
you've already,
We've interviewed because we've had to,
so you've already interviewed with the salary. I mean, could we take 10,000 out of that salary and put it in the maintenance manager salary so that?
so the
there's a-
salary that was posted for the position of
Okay.
director,
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
It's not negotiable.
it was posted.
It was posted,
Yes.
okay.
but it's not,
There's a range, though.
it's not posted as a range.
Oh, it's not?
It's a set of,
It's just one, the pay is set,
a
It's
set.
just saying,
Uh-huh.
so it's just saying it's a starting salary, is that what it's saying?
I believe so.
So do you have copies of these new job postings, of the job descriptions? Could we, as a board, get
The job descriptions of,
Operations.
the
So the-
director of operations that you've sent out, if we could just get in the board packet, that just in writing so we could all look at it. The maintenance manager position that you're creating, if we could see
absolutely.
the job specifications, and then
No,
also.
that one is not posted and we don't plan on posting.
Right, but if we just need
Absolutely.
the description of what would be entailed in this position and the benefits and the pay and whatever we would be offering this particular individual. And then can we also see the job descriptions? So even if they're not posted, of the 2 assistant secretary
Sure.
positions, so that we can maybe delineate between the responsibilities, who's going to do what, when, where, why, and how, especially with the added component of the business operations. And then my last comment is, I'm not sure how comfortable I am I don't think this is best practices to take an individual who's been with the district so long, who has been through a global pandemic, a crisis, who's helped to establish a state-of-the-art top water filtration system for our district, and then just to, I don't know, it doesn't sit right with me, and I would hate for him to be watching, and does he even know this is on the table, or that it's
So
coming down the pipe?
we've had some discussions about we have discussions about the work that is not being,
Can I,
yes.
if I may? So with putting him in an interim position, it required us to hold the posting open and do interviews. And the board required us to continue to look for other people.
Correct.
So there was discussion with him about, hey, we love you. I know that's inappropriate, but we have to walk through this process because the interim was still on his title, and we
Correct.
had to keep that posting. So if we had not uncovered a candidate at a different caliber, we still would have had to do those interviews to be able to come back before the board to finish that process. So there has been discussion with him about this process and about where we were going with this process.
And
But I mean, if
also-
he's watching this meeting now, is he gonna be like, oh my God, I had no idea?
Here's what he does know. Here's what he does know, and I can repeat this. We've had discussions about things that have been an issue, that his skill set is not performing at the level that we need, okay? I don't want to go into too much detail about that, because I also do hold this person, I do respect this person, and that's why we found a way to.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah,
You
okay,
don't have to
so,
get too
so
many details.
have we had the conversation of the insufficient skill set? Absolutely. And it is, and some of my other teammates have had to do some of the work that should be done.
No, I meant the
change.
change.
The-
I didn't mean.
well,
We
I mean,
couldn't do
yeah.
so before
I
bringing him
couldn't-
in.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Normally,
Yeah.
Okay,
I have to
that
come
was
to
my
the lead,
question.
I have to come to you
I know.
before I talk to, or we make any moves. We didn't offer anyone a position, we didn't do any of that. We haven't called anyone back, no one knows who we're
the
thinking about
person is,
hiring,
yeah.
none of that happened. I needed to come to the board first and let you know where the administration was going, so that we can do the work that needs to be done. Yes, sir.
Superintendent Jones, what I see is that this individual, this maintenance manager individual, who we feel like, at least I do, I feel like that individual, that employee has done a good job since I've been here. And when I look at it, I kind of put myself in that position, because I did that for General Motors for 33 years. I was a test engineering technician. That's what I was. And I had to wait for the engineer to come and give me the manual to do the test on whatever it was that he wanted. It was parameters that I had to go by, there were measurements, there were instruments, but the expertise of the execution of it was my responsibility, to do the test, to obtain the data. Then once I got the data, the information, and perhaps, let's say, in that testing phase, some things on the engine dynamometer setup failed. All I did was turn the data over to him, all the parts and what have you, and then once the engineer got it, they took it from there and they went and put it under whatever they did in the labs and in the engineering labs and stuff like that. So that's the kind of way I look at this situation, is that without that maintenance manager, that a director of operation, a construction manager, still needs to have that skilled person right there to be able to say, this is what we have, this is where we are, and why is this? Because this is what we've done, and so forth. And I think that, for me, I think it's a good decision. I was somewhat concerned about the money as well. But I was more concerned, I did not want to see that subtracted from the maintenance manager. It would be, if it was any way possible to maintain, not take anything away, but just maintain that. It would be really good for that individual, that employee.
I
You
will
know,
talk
and
to.
if you can take a
I'll talk
look
to the
at,
business office.
Yes,
And
and
see
see.
if, you know, if there's some other things, because we did look at it.
yes,
We looked into it, but we'll try to see what we can do before we bring this to you. Because I do understand where you are, and, you know, we do have to value and care about our
Yes.
employees, and we do.
yes,
We do, because this position was not here.
right,
I want that to be clear too. Like, we have created an opportunity, because we do believe that this person that is our interim right now has a skill set
That's
that
right.
we need in this day and
He has
time.
his-
that employee does have a skill set.
Absolutely.
You don't believe, that employee has a skill set.
Absolutely.
No question about it.
Absolutely. So we will go back, we'll push some more, we'll see where we are, but it is my responsibility as a superintendent to be fiscally responsible and to only do what is necessary to keep
That's right.
keep the money right in the district. And we're trying to do that while expanding, getting more people to help us do the heavy lifting we have to do in the district. Yes, ma'am.
On the other hand, if you don't, there's always the possibility that if we aren't offering the equivalent, you could lose this employee, which would be more costly in the long run as well in terms of hiring and the transition and things like that, and losing the valuable services. So that's also a fiscal decision to take care of. And along those lines, could we see the org chart that would,
This will
Do-
be reflected
yeah,
in.
do we have the old org chart?
So, yes.
With so maybe the old one and then like a new one that has the way that this is all gonna be restructured, and then some kind of an indication how this is not gonna take money from how it's not gonna cost anymore unless we were to boost it like 10,000 or
Now,
whatever. Can we
are we-
see that, like an
Could I
org
do
chart?
like a presentation where I kind of show the old position being removed, what position is removed and those funds moving? Does that make sense?
No,
Not
we need
like
an
a-
org chart.
I understand, but you want to be able to see the money piece, and that isn't typically in the org chart. You understand?
Right.
So that's the
So-
analysis piece.
Yeah, so what in my mind, I'm just thinking if I took the org chart and I gave a visual of where this was the old department, and because we are moving this is what allots for the funds for the new squares per se. You understand what I mean? So, and not that you wouldn't be able to have it on paper, but if I just gave it to you on paper, it's just the old one and the new one. It wouldn't necessarily.
Can we have it on paper, though?
Yeah, you can. Yeah,
Yeah,
you can.
please.
I just want to make sure that an org chart is just the boxes with the names, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's pretty important to have.
Yeah.
Because don't we have to have that for our budget?
So what
For our
we-
budget anyway. It's got to be in for our projected budget and all that kind of
What we
stuff.
have is sufficient for that. However, to do an analysis and bringing up these new positions and things, that's going to take a little bit longer than just giving you an org chart of where people should be and where they fit on the org chart. But the analysis, the job analysis, is a little bit more detailed than that.
So if
Okay.
you're just asking for the details specifically of these positions,
No, we're asking for all of it.
Right,
The org chart,
right.
the
So, yeah.
analysis, and the position descriptions.
right, so,
And they don't necessarily have to be done all at the same time. I'm just,
right.
and I'm not
So we
saying
have the
it's
job
gonna be-
descriptions, and we've already done that work. So I'm saying if you're asking specifically for what we're talking about today, then I can make that happen. If we're asking for an analysis for the entire organization, like what Ms. Washington did, that takes quite a bit of time. But
I mean, isn't that what we've been asking for, though? Like,
an analysis?
yeah. I mean, we've been asking for that for quite a while.
So we used we did use the one that we had.
Right,
And
but don't we need it updated?
I kept hearing org chart. That's what I kept hearing. We need to see the org
Okay, so
chart.
then semantically, I mean, whether it's called an org chart or a job analysis, whatever it is,
But
how
there-
about both, all, and
Not, right,
encompassing?
but there are two different documents. So when I heard org
Okay.
chart, we provided an org chart.
Yeah, you
So,
did.
so we
Yeah.
provided an org chart,
Okay.
and when I talked to board president, that's when I started understanding
That it
more.
was the job
Oh,
analysis.
you want an analysis? And so we just talked
Okay.
about a week ago about what she actually wanted and what the board is actually wanting to see. They're
Okay.
wanting to see the budget line item, you know, how is this person paid, how much they're getting paid.
Mm-hmm.
That's the analysis that we didn't quite understand
Okay,
what was being asked. Now that I got that, we did speak about it, and that's why I'm saying, one is easier to give you than the other, because we need to put all of that information in the proper way. Now, most of it we have, because it's already, I just don't know that we have the document. We weren't left with the electronic document, so all of that has to be recreated.
Well,
Okay.
and we have it in paper, but it has to be recreated and then it has to be reanalyzed. So every single person in every single department has to be touched. And so what Ms. Washington did was months and months of work. You have to sit down with the people, you have to understand what their jobs are. You have to touch each and every position to make sure that the information you're providing is correct. She did that about 2 years ago. The district may be a little different
oh,
than,
it's completely different. We've had so much turnover.
right,
And so
right, so
much,
you
and we have
understand.
no
So
institutional
I can't
memory at
just
all.
take that and say, oh, let's just scratch
No
this. No, I've gotta touch,
Yeah.
I've gotta touch
Roles
each
have
position.
changed.
It's kind of
And so-
necessary though, too.
I'm not saying
Yeah,
it's not
yeah.
necessary, I'm just saying it takes time. And right now, I have 3 people in probably what should be a 5-people department. So all of us are doing extra job in HR alone. That ain't even talking about having to fill in or help as much as we can in the business office because of those vacancies as well.
And you have a retirement coming up.
That's what I mean,
In your
yeah,
department.
yeah.
So let me say this. When I say that the district is not going to, I want to be clear, when the district is not going to it's not going to cost us any more money, that is the position of the maintenance manager. Because we're foregoing the administrative assistant in that department. But what is going to cost us is the fact that the board needs a secretary separate from the working everyday secretary that's going to help the superintendent run the district. Currently, that job has been 2 people. It's going to cost us to have the board have its own secretary. That's going to cost us.
That's addition.
Yes, that's going to cost us. We have a person that is willing and has done the board work before. That's going to cost us. Separating them out to have 2 different people, that is going to cost the district. I want to be clear. But I think it's one of those necessary things because it's too much. It's just way too much for one person. Now, you had one executive assistant here that's been here so long that she learned how to make this easy for herself, right? But someone that has not done this, there's going to be a learning curve. It's going to take some time, and it's going to take some effort to get this person trained.
So I'm confused. I thought you were saying that it wouldn't cost us any more money,
No, this,
and now it is.
No. What
Maybe I just misheard.
What I was saying was the director of operations, having 2 people in that department, which we didn't
Okay.
have before, is not going to cost us any more money. And so, but what will cost us money is the secretarial piece.
Okay.
And
So we
I've
had
talked this
one
over with
person
board
for so
president because
long.
board president
Yeah.
feels that it's impossible for us to, she feels the same way, that it's impossible for us to continue going this way when the board needs, don't take this the wrong way, when the board work needs a lot of attention. And so there's been things that I've taken on, duties that I've taken on to support my executive assistant that would normally be done by an assistant, and has made life a little difficult. But we've been doing it because we got to get the work done. But I think moving forward, if we do it this way, I think things will be a lot better. and things will get done a lot swifter if we decide to do this. Yes, sir.
Superintendent Jones, is that board secretary job, is it posted? Or is it?
So the board secretary job will be a job that we want to move, we want to move,
Appointed.
yeah, we want to appoint, I try not to say names, but we want to appoint that person over there to be trained and to go into that, because this person has the skill set as it pertains to working with the board in the past. After talking to the board president was adamant about working with this person, feeling as though that she could fill those shoes. And so it can be done. It will be less than, the cost will be less for that person because they're taking on this duty instead of taking on two duties. It'll be less for that person. But I still think we need to consider having both. Because the business office, I mean, not the business office, but the operations office is still gonna need some support
Right,
with administration.
So is this person still getting the same compensation?
yes, thank you.
What do you mean? No. You talking about the
Talking about
board
the
secretary?
Yeah.
Yes,
They're not getting the same compensation as our current executive assistant.
No.
no,
Are
that's
they
not what we
getting
asked.
the current, what they're getting now at least? Or is there,
Is the
Pay
pay gonna
getting
stay the
cut.
same for this person here?
Are they is it a cut, is it a decrease?
It's not a decrease.
Okay,
It's not a decrease.
Is it a lateral move?
It's not a lateral move.
so what is it? I mean, okay, it's not a decrease?
I'm about
So it's an
to tell
increase?
you.
Okay.
Yeah. So in speaking to, the reason why it's not is because the current executive assistant gets paid for these meetings. Outside of her pay, gets paid for these meetings, okay? So there's going to be some extra pay that happens because this is extra stuff that the board has decided this person should be paid for that,
okay.
okay? You get what I'm saying? So now, the person that is deciding to do this we have not put anything in front of them to say, this is going to be your pay. Because I wanted to have this conversation. A lot of things have to happen at this table before they can go and happen with others. Okay? So it's not a lateral move.
Okay.
And I know you're connecting that dot to what we're doing. We're bringing on a whole new position. But this is not a new position in this district. And it is more work than this person is actually doing now, taking on the work that they have to do with the board. So I feel like it's different. And if we look at it just as people, I can see where you're going with that. But when it comes to the actual work that has to be done,
I get that. I mean, just they're not going down. They're not sliding
not-
backwards.
they're not
Okay,
going
that's,
backwards.
that's what, that was my concern.
okay, they're not going backwards.
Okay, that's fine.
They were going a little higher.
Okay,
That's fine.
But I think
that's,
it's
I mean, that's
necessary.
fine.
I
just
like the
wanted-
fact that you're using internal people, not going outside for these positions. You're using the individuals who are currently working and,
I-
sort of like promoting them or keeping them at a lateral move.
Well, for me, I think we're gonna get an employee is like a diamond in the rough. That's
Oh,
what
yeah.
I think.
You want to keep loyal people.
That's just me, from what I know.
Well, I got a couple diamonds in the rough.
Well, I just said, I already know about
They're
that, but
great
I'm
diamonds.
speaking of the
I was
one.
gonna say rough diamonds, come on. That's, I mean, that's sort of a little disparity.
No,
They're not like
no.
diamond in the rough, like,
No,
you
you,
got
we had to,
potential, but
we had
it
to
hasn't
chip,
been realized.
Superintendent,
And I'm like,
we had to
wait a minute.
chisel it out. We had to cut it out of
Well,
there.
the rough
It was,
is- the
yeah, the
rough is
rough,
the
yeah.
district,
Yeah, it
right?
was the board,
The
no.
rough
it
is
was-
the district, the work that we gotta do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're right.
There's
the rough is
diamonds
the
in this.
board.
Yeah, it's the
That's what
board.
I mean.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
I
then
know
you're not
what it
using the
is.
metaphor right, so as an
I know what it
academic, I'm
is.
just saying, let's, yeah, you can, yeah.
So I just wanted to explain that, and I know we have different feelings on it, but we'll put the information in the packet to ensure that we're giving the right information. Okay?
Just one more question about the Director of Operations. That employee will they be required, can we, as the board, can we require that individual to come to the board meetings?
Oh,
or
he has to
show up?
come.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
okay.
And I'm sure that at times, we're gonna need our maintenance manager, depending on the work, because we're not gonna take the hydration stations away from
Right.
that person. That was his baby.
Yeah.
We're not gonna take some of the things that we know he was the boilers and all of those things that no one coming in would know about
They wouldn't know.
in our district. This person is going to know about
Yeah,
those.
air
So
conditioners.
there's,
Chimney corners, I mean, come on,
there's
man.
gonna be a lot of conversation that I have to make sure, and the team was concerned about that as well. So, I hear the board, I understand that. We have to have a heart for our people and understand the pros and the cons. But I'm gonna go back, do some work, and, see what I can do to make that, see if we can make that right. If it's not feasibly possible, then I'll bring that back to you.
I mean, because otherwise I'll go and do a financial analysis that shows how much it'll cost us if we lose this individual. And we have to
Yeah,
do a RFP and a job search for somebody who doesn't have that background and that knowledge and
The
that.
institutional knowledge too.
Right.
That's right, that's right. That would be very, very
And the
costly. And
dedication
so, you know,
I also wanted to just point out for the board, things that we didn't need to have as agenda items, but as always, there will be a person in the packet for Ms. Murphy's, department. It's been vacant for 2.5 months now, 3, 4, 5. It's been vacant. So, we found a candidate, so that person will be in the packet, and then, a recent resignation, retirement
Okay.
retirement from the district, resignation from us will be in the packet as well. But those are, those will go in, as they normally do. They just weren't typically priority items that needed depth of discussion to me, but if you'd
what's
like to
the
discuss.
timeline for the job analysis so that when we get these job recommendations, that we'll be better able to make decisions?
So I
about
can give
moving them
you,
forward.
I can give you that specific information for the snapshot of what we're talking about, right? You understand what I'm saying? So if you're, like, you say,
Yeah.
I need job descriptions for this and this, I got that for you.
Yeah.
I need to be able to see what the structure looked like, the department looked like before and after, and where that money, how that money is transitioned. I can get that for you in that snapshot. If we're talking about the entire organization, though,
Yeah.
that's a
What's
different.
the timeline for that?
I don't know.
So if we're gonna have people being brought forward, say, for example, this assistant for Ms. Murphy.
It's not an assistant, it's
I
a
mean,
grant
it's, right.
procurement. yeah,
Right.
mhm.
They're already in,
I understand that, but I mean, like, where would be what we've been asking for, and before your tenure as well, so it's not like this isn't a personal thing. As people are being brought forward, say, for example, this individual, where we need the job analysis so that we can understand the context in which we're promoting and moving these people forward, even if it's a previous position that hasn't been filled for 5 odd months or so. Do you see the position of the board? In order to be fiscally responsible, when we were, at least when I was brought on, almost 2 years ago, we only had this old one, and we weren't given this information, and things were just being rubber stamped. And in order to be fiscally responsible, we need the context in which we're checking off and promoting these positions that you're bringing forward. That's what I'm saying. It's very difficult to make these kind of decisions without that understanding, which is why I think there's been some urgency to getting this job analysis and having this done. So I'm not like criticizing you. What I'm asking for, though, is a timeline, though.
Yeah, I
And
think-
I know you're like, oh my God.
can we
but-
talk
No, I'm
that?
not
I mean,
like,
even if you
yeah.
were to say 5 years, that would
No,
give
I'm
me an
not gonna
idea.
I'm not gonna say, oh my, I think it's, the only reason why
I
I'm,
would. That's why I'm-
yeah, the only reason why I'm pausing, because it's appropriate to pause, is because of the lack of resources that I have and the systems that I have. So everything takes so long. So it's difficult to say, when you've got fires and grievances and conflicts and harassment case, when you've got stuff like that, and then you've got a
And you're
project
already
that typically.
down-staffed.
Correct, so I just paused,
Yeah,
right?
so I'm just,
So,
like I said, it could be
um,
5 years, and it's not even that, I'm just asking for a timeline so that I have an
Yeah.
understanding about the enormity of the project,
Can-
not
can-
as a criticism of you.
Can I just ask a clarifying question just to make sure? So in the absence of this very thorough job analysis, I was present when Mrs. Washington was our HR director. She interviewed me for over an hour. She interviewed every member of my staff. So just for her to get through my department alone, maybe several hours of work, just to give some context of the thorough analysis that happens or goes into that work. So we talked earlier about the organizational chart, and having identified those positions on the org chart where they're funded. Does that give the board the context they need to, along with the job description? To say, this is the job description for the position that we're filling, this is where it's placed on the organizational chart. Is that enough information to make decision from as we are, because it may take a year to do a complete another job analysis. I don't think that would be an unrealistic time frame at all, just based on
What
what
it
I
takes to do the
saw,
job.
what Ms. Washington did to perform the initial one. So I'm just wondering, in the absence of that, if that does take
In
a
the
year.
absence of that, any information would be useful. And like
Okay.
I said, I'm just trying to get I'm just trying to wrap my head around how long this is gonna, if it takes a year, that's fine, but I just am trying to figure out
Yeah.
what the timeline
Yeah,
is.
I wasn't here when she did it. I would imagine with a full staff, it took her at least 6 to 8 months. I don't have a full staff, right? And so I would say at least a year to be able to give you that robust item or packet. Because, I mean, we're working all day and all night.
So what
And
can
that's
we,
just the
can we
truth.
provide the board with, because we, so I guess whatever we give the board becomes public, right? So,
Yeah. Yes.
we have to be careful on
Very much
certain
so.
portions of that. And so I think another conversation can be had to know what we can provide the board that will be feasible until that is complete.
Right. Org chart with funding sources and job descriptions is doable. A job analysis is so much more technical because it lists more information than just that in one document.
But what about the funding, how much a person costs, right?
Yeah, so that's different than being able to say how they're funded. You see what I mean? So then that's the analysis
But the
piece.
fiscal responsibility comes in, that's where you're talking about knowing how much a person would cost the district.
Yeah, and
Because
and
salary is
just
different
structural,
than how much it
you know,
costs.
necessity and like where it fits in and just, you know, there's a whole, like, you know, institutional functioning that we need to understand as a
And that's the
board.
analysis.
And maybe walking through the organizational chart may provide some context, because I know that there has been this conversation of maybe we're too top-heavy or things like that, but actually
Yes.
walking through the work and the org chart may provide some context to,
What's really
to
happening.
really see where the work lies, how many staff are responsible for what, what's the funding sources for each individual staff person, where the majority of their responsibilities lie. That may be something that we can do by department or something that may not be, it may even be a starting point for the analysis, I'm thinking. I'm just kind of thinking through what the board what might help to even start to say, okay, this is what we're telling HR is going on in our department. These are how the responsibilities are divvied out. Here are the job descriptions for each of the employees present. And even the vacancies in the work that still exist, even though those positions are not filled.
Yeah, and by no means
I
am
don't know. I'm just trying to
am I
think through what
diminishing
might
the
help.
need at all. But as you said, oh my goodness, in my mind, I'm thinking, I mean, we are missing an MTSS supervisor, LSS supervisor. Now, an HR manager. My benefits person is doing benefits and recruiting. We don't have a finance director. So in my mind, I'm just thinking about that level of work and the amount of focus that you need in the absence of any appropriate technological tool, right? Because a tool assists you. It
You
doesn't
got
do the work
DOS.
for you, but you have to do all of that work manually in the absence of the appropriate human resources, not just in my department, but in every other department in the central office.
Yeah.
Right.
So the burden is heavy, not because the need is diminished, but because we literally work all night. Like, we're literally working midnight, 1 o'clock, all the time, every night. And so the idea is not to say, I need to pass that can or push that buck. It's just heavy. That's all. I understand the need though,
So-
and what we
so-
can do is try to figure out, how we can provide the appropriate context.
And then get the analysis done. If we're talking 8 months to a year, we make sure that we try to meet that and come with something tangible.
Yeah, Superintendent Jones, I like that, but what Ms. Murphy said sounds like a real good, solid starting point right there. And the analysis, and then as we go along and get the broader part. Because Sister Laura has, ever since I've been here, she's asked for that.
Yeah, and I
Now
think,
that, and it has been part of the record, no question about it.
I would say this,
So,
that now I have a person
right,
that
there you go.
that I can believe
Yeah,
that can handle this work
oh yeah,
and do it right.
she's well able, no question about it.
And since Ms. Cassandra left, we haven't had that ability to handle that level of work.
Right,
And so now we have a person that we can actually have handle that level of work because she has that skill set.
How many employees do we have total, do you know?
well, it's convoluted because of the contracted.
yeah.
Okay.
Right, so we have about 290 UTF. We have about, I would say 20 Congress.
Okay.
Paraprofessionals, we've got, I would say maybe about 100.
Okay.
And then our professional technicals, I think we're at about 50. Now, you've got, when you talk about your contracted staff,
Uh-huh.
that's a whole nother beast.
CSM,
And I could
staff.
Of what
probably
staff
get that
is
in.
that? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
repeat.
that's gonna be your
CSO.
janitorial, your
Okay.
maintenance, your, food services, your
School
bus
bus
drivers,
Oh, Lord.
your behavioral
Behavior specialists,
specialists,
yeah.
which are not
your
our
nurses,
employees.
yeah,
Okay.
your
That
nurses.
third party,
Yeah, so there are, we have some secretaries, our building secretaries, our attendance agents,
Family engagement.
family engagement coordinators,
HR.
security. Yeah, so there's a lot of people out there. I could give you a rough number really quick. I have a spreadsheet right here that lists
I
our
guess
contractors.
the question I have is, what Ms. Murphy was saying about beginning to start to do that, what the time frame for that, I mean, is it,
And my difficulty even with that is, so Ms. Murphy is a executive, right?
right,
And so she has a department under her, she's president. In our cabinet, we've got 3 or 4 missing seats. So
Okay.
then I have to go to somebody else who's filling a leadership position in an interim to try, you understand what I'm saying? To try to gather information at a leadership level, even with what she offered. So what she offered works where leaders are present, but we have so many holes right now that even that is trying to go to this, maybe a coordinator or somebody who isn't a leader in that department to work through that information, because we're missing key positions right now, which it makes it even more difficult, because then you say, okay, then you feel it, that person don't necessarily know, right? So it elongates the issue, because you essentially have to do it in the absence of somebody who's able to tell you this person does this person does this is how we shift this work, that person is gone.
And I don't know that we should necessarily take what we had before and just say, oh, here it is, and put it down. I think
it's
we
not the
should
same.
do, that's like, this board is not gonna do what the other board did, right? You're gonna go do it for yourself. I think we should do our own audit and analysis for the staffing that we have in this district. So I think the starting point, I think you're right, but the starting point to getting our board what they need will probably be Ms. Galloway supplying the 3 things that she says she can supply, but doing a presentation to go through it so the board can see what's actually going on and you can ask questions if you
Yeah.
have them. So I think that's a better place to start, as you stated earlier, and maybe we determine when that's going to take place to
Yeah.
help the board. It could be the regular board meeting instead of the POW or August.
You saying to have the discussion, or you saying
The
to have
discussion.
the work? Okay, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
And you had,
Yep.
how many other, the techs?
Yep.
You had 50 techs, and how many other, like,
Contracted,
security?
yep,
Yeah.
so your contracted employees, we're last approximately at about 315, with
Okay.
all of those vendors in there,
Right,
yeah,
okay. That's a lot to manage.
yeah. Yeah,
Lot to manage.
it's almost equal. Okay? That's all that I want to do.
Before we adjourn, do any committee members have any remarks?
Would we, I think we have one person in the audience. Could
We do, yeah.
see if they want to
Sister Claire, yeah.
make a comment or? It's like, nope. No.
Well,
Okay, just afford the opportunity,
Right,
like
that's
what we
right.
do, yeah.
we always want the public input. The next Human Resource Subcommittee meeting is planned for Monday, July the 25th at 5:30 p.m. Seeing no further business, I declare the Human Resources Subcommittee adjourned
7:30.
Thank
on
you.
the dot.
Support.
at 7:30 p.m.
Thank you, board members.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mo.
Thank
Is this
you.
your last subcommittee